in the building. We got Cam, Duke.
It is your host, Les Thomas, and I'm with Stillwater America Podcast.
This is the We Love Athletes podcast.
I guess good looking, probably. That's probably it.
And most importantly, the hard work of our educators.
Thank you again for hitting that play button for another episode of the Hetty Coleman Podcast. Go in. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hitting that play button for another episode of the Hetty Coleman Podcast, where I sit down with fabulous people to have go-win conversations. Go-win is being consistent and doing the right things that allow for you to achieve the wins that you have defined for your life so that you can live out your greatest story. I want two things to happen from these conversations. One, I want you to learn. Two, I want you to be inspired. Today, ladies and gentlemen, today, in the studio, in the room, right now, is Greg Hawks.
Yeah.
Now, understand this. Greg Hawks is not supposed to be in this. This conversation is with Monica, not Greg. Monica Scott is the person I'm supposed to have a conversation. Somehow Greg has shown back up in my studio with his own camera. He wants a mic. He wants a mic. I mean, I just spent 2 hours with the guy having a conversation. Now he's back here trying to control everything. And if you know Greg, you know this is all true. Monica, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic.
Let's
Thank
ignore
you.
the person over to our right, your left.
He's not
okay.
here. It's fine.
He's not here.
Yeah,
He's not
we're
here.
good.
Monica, this is our second recording.
It is. Look at that.
Whose fault was that?
I don't know. I don't know what happened.
See, you're so sweet. I appreciate that. This is all my fault. I appreciate you making the drive all the way back from.
It's not
are you in
bad.
Edmond or Oklahoma City?
I'm in Edmond.
All the way back from Edmond.
All the way.
What part of Edmond though?
I'm southeast.
Southeast.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a little ways.
Oh, but it's
away.
about 25.
Well, what makes it a little ways is the stoplights.
Yeah, it's just once you get to 35, it's all
You're
good.
good. No, yeah, you just zoom down. I try not to go through Edmond anymore because it's just grown so much. I grew up in
hate-
Guthrie. I remember when, there was no stoplights.
Yeah.
And now it's crazy.
Yeah, and people don't know how to use them, so it's just kind of frustrating sometimes.
People don't know how to use the stoplights. People do not know how to use the stoplights in Edmond, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're in
sometimes people be on their phone and they miss things or they don't turn when they're supposed to turn on, like turn right or whatever. So
yeah, it's all good.
good times in
You're
Edmond.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Edmond
you. Yeah,
traffic.
Edmond's a great place to live too.
Yeah.
A lot of people live there. For the people who are listening, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Monica Cherie Scott.
Cherie.
I go by Monica, but
Okay.
I like my middle name, so I throw it in there now. But professionally, I work with Hawks Agency, and I work with people and organizations to help them make progress and to set up an environment, to shape an environment that is value-based. And I think deeper than that, I have a lifelong passion to help people make the connection between lasting deep truth and the everyday realities of life. And so I love making that connection myself when you have like a revelation and you have a thought or someone says something or it's something it's a lasting truth, and then you make the connection to your day-to-day and you're like, oh my God, that changes everything. And so I love those moments, and so I love when I get to do that with what I do, and I also do the media directing for Hawks Agency and write some on the side.
Gotcha. That's good. How would your friends describe you? Like what? How would they say Monica is?
Okay. I think they would say I was nice. That's
Nice?
simple. I'm nice. Be different.
Be different.
Be
Hey.
nice. You know that song?
Now, do you do that? I'm one of those people. Like, if I start doing something, I start singing. Like, I'll make it a song.
Well, that's actually a real song. What I do is all throughout my life.
Well, you just heard me say I don't go to concerts.
Well, all throughout my life, when someone says something or I say something that is a similar lyric to a real song,
Got you.
I can't help but sing the song.
California. What song?
California love.
Okay, I like that.
All right.
That's good.
No,
Go ahead. Okay.
There's no filter though, so careful.
What about whoop?
Whoop.
Whoop, whoop. There it is.
Oh, see, I went to shoop.
Oh.
I was like,
Is that salt and
whoop,
pepper?
whoop, whoop. What?
Salt and pepper?
Shoop. I don't remember.
I think
Could
salt
be.
and pepper. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm nice.
On the mic.
I'm a little goofy.
You're nice
as you
on the
can
mic.
see, and here, and yeah, I think my friends would say I'm funny. I can be very calm and rational, but I can also, I think everybody has that side that I call it. It sounds a little weird, but you let your freak flag fly. I think everyone's got one, and our friends and closest loved ones get to see that, and it's like, wow, you're really weird. I think that's the moment you want, your loved ones and friends to have.
Gotcha. So now, before we were sitting here talking before we get started and everything, and Greg really is in the room. I'm sure
He really is.
Yeah, he is in the room. You work for Hawk Agencies, right?
Yeah.
You're doing this great work over there at Hawk Agency. And I did recently have Greg on the podcast, and he did a fabulous job just talking about getting into the speaking business.
Yes.
Right. And so are you doing work based on the speaking side, but you also said you're a media director?
Yes.
Kind of talk to me about that. What is that?
So it's both. So the media directing has a lot to do with the content and artwork and putting different projects together, whether like we just did an executive summary or a guide for leaders or different things, slide decks, whatever. And then we have I do the speaking. So I go out and do keynote speaking engagements or workshops or trainings with different organizations or associations that want to help their people or improve their culture.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so when I hear that, let's just say that I don't know, have a clue, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about these organizations, are you talking about like Walmart? Are you talking about nonprofits? Like, give me an example of what that looks like.
Okay. Well, some of it is nonprofit, like if it's in government groups where they bring their team together and they want to do like a training, like I've done an half-day training for some groups, or you go into the Oklahoma HR conference and do a session there for HR directors or executives, or you can be brought into organizations. My names are escaping me. But just generally organizations from usually 20 to 300 people that they can bring someone in from the outside. And it's really great, to have an outside perspective, to be able to speak in and really to affirm what the leaders are trying to do and maybe changes to improve that they're trying to make. And so having someone come in and speak to it from a fresh perspective and bring new language or maybe some new ideas and help get that ball rolling is what we do.
Now, that I love hearing that because I think culture is a thing that matters, right? And coming in and working with people, trying to get them to begin to think differently.
Yes.
A big part of what Greg and I talked about was his ownership talk, where coming in and getting people to start thinking differently about owning what they do, the work that they do, and all that. And so in that, just tell me real quick, because I kind of like when people talk about what are some of the things that you have to overcome when you come in and work with a particular group like this. Like, what are some big challenges that you find when working with teams along these lines?
In working with people
or
working
within
with myself?
People.
Okay.
Working with the people, just in general.
Okay. Well, I think, generally the hiccups are when you take it down to like an individual person, like everyone has their mindsets that they believe and that they're sometimes stuck in if they're poor or if they're not as good as they can be. And so I think what we have to do when we want to help someone or help an organization or help a group of people, it doesn't matter if it's one person or if it's 1,000 people, you're having to kind of break down those barriers of the walls of like, why should I listen to you? do you even know me at all? You don't know me. Like, is there any way to connect? That kind of thing. So I think those types of walls and barriers that people on an individual level put up is what you face on a larger scale with a group.
Yeah.
And I think for myself, one of the best things that I can do is, number one, be myself, so we don't get into the things that we're planning, but is be myself. But secondary to that, I think that is so important, and this may just be me, but it's to have fun and to connect with laughter. I think there is just some walls that naturally come down when you can laugh with someone, or at least smile. Yeah. It's like there's some kind of barrier breaking thing that happens, and you're like, okay, I can hang with you for an hour.
Yes. Yeah. So. No, I'm a big believer in that as well. One of the things, so at our church, we do this vision. Every time we end, we have this vision. Hey, everybody, you know the vision. If you don't know it, it's on the wall. Say it with me. And it says, love God, love people, and follow Jesus, right? Well, in our kids area, they have the same vision. Yeah. But they have a fourth thing that they say. And so they say, love God, love people, have fun, follow Jesus. And I'm like, more than any other place in the church, we need that in the big sanctuary, because adults have such they're so serious. So I'm like, let's have some fun. Like, Jesus is looking down on us and thinking, you guys are way too serious, and I've already done all the work. You know what I'm saying? Like, from a faith perspective for us who are believers. But like, oh my goodness, have a little bit of fun. So I love that. Yeah. And it's always good when I go into an environment, like, how can we get these people to smile, have fun, let their shoulders down a little bit, but then let's bring something that's going to really be able to get them to potentially think differently, start seeing things differently and all that. What's the challenge in that? Because sometimes you can lose people. You start having too much fun. Yeah. But then to bring people back and be like, okay, they have a balance in that.
The other way I believe to do that, in one of the talks that I do, I love this opening. Actually, I almost wanted to use it for everything I did, but I was told that wasn't a great idea.
Can you just go a little bit deeper?
I won't say who said that. I won't say who said that. He might be in the room. What does that mean
that it's not a great idea?
Okay, so, well, it's a story, but basically there's a way, I think, to invite people in also. So I think comedy can do that, laughing, smiling. It really does get us kind of in the same rhythm together as people. When we can do that, we're like, okay, now we're all happy. It's not like, people over there are mad and then they're frustrated and then they're just like wanting to fall asleep, and they're like, when everyone kind of laughs in the room, the atmosphere can shift immediately. The other thing, though, that I believe can work and really helps me is to invite people. Like, here's where I'm at. I want to invite you to meet me in this space. And the way that I do that is through storytelling. So, one of the stories I tell is about my daughter that we went to the beach a couple years ago, and it was her first time to see the beach. To her memory, she was like an infant when she went before. And so my kids went into the water for the first time. Like, we drove up to the beach. She ran in, like, fully clothed, her and my son. They were, like, frolicking around. And, I mean, I was, like, living my best mom life, because I was like, this makes me so happy. And I trust them. They're really good swimmers, so I wasn't too worried. But they were just living their best life, too, in that moment. And then the next day, we got up in the next morning to really go to the beach. But before, we were, like, sitting on the balcony and, like, talking about our day, what we're going to eat, and watching the ocean. And my daughter said, man, life, she said, the ocean is so crazy. She said, because up here, it, like, looks so peaceful and it's, like, so pretty. And I think she would have had that impression as well from TV. But she said, but when you're in it, it's so crazy and so loud, and it's, like, overwhelming. She was like, I couldn't even hear you yelling, and you were yelling at us. And I was like, yes, I was. And I thought you weren't listening, But she's like, I couldn't even hear you. She was talking about how crazy it is. And I tell that story to an audience and say, That's how life feels. That's how work can feel. That's how life can feel. When you're in it, it just feels chaotic sometimes. It's hard to make up what's going on. It can feel overwhelming. Everything's just so loud. I was like, but if you can take a step back and kind of observe objectively what is going on here, then you're able to go, hey, there's some rhythm here. Or there's something to enjoy. There's some beauty in this. Or how can we improve? And you'll be able to understand things that you couldn't understand when you were right in the middle of it. And so then I say, I would like you all to be invited to sit with me on the balcony today. And we're going to look at culture, and we're going to look at the problems that we're facing from a distance and objectively. And I want to invite you to do that with me. Okay? And so I think inviting people, whether it's through a story or just telling them, hey, this is what we're going to do today, and I want to invite you, then it's not like, come along with me. Yeah. And you're like pulling them along. You're inviting them and say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So do you want to be part?
See, that's much better than me starting out singing the ABCs with the whole group. Oh my goodness! I need to start off. I need to find a story or something like that that I think is really good. And so, now as a speaker, you're a speaker, that's part of what you do.
Yes.
You get to go in and meet with these teams and these organizations and all these wonderful things. I was thinking about, since we had, hey Greg, are you going out?
He's got a cough.
Okay.
I
was gonna say, if you go out, make sure you prop the door in some way, because you won't be able to get back in. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're just making sure that Greg is well taken care of since he just showed up today. So anyway, we talked about you being a speaker.
Yes.
And we wanted to talk about what are some of those right things that you have learned to be consistent in around being a speaker, right?
Yeah.
And we had a call and we talked about some of these things. I'm gonna go through these 5 things and then we'll let you dive into those.
Sounds good.
Into these things. Is that good? So 1, you said know thyself. All right. And then the second one, you said write, rinse, and repeat. I'm really interested in that, what that means. 3, choose your lane.
Yep.
4, sit down and be humble. I'm interested in that too. I'm interested in all of these, but those 2 so far just really jumped out at me. And then the thing that you said was boldly take every opportunity you can.
Yeah.
Now I'm interested in that because I feel like that's something that I'm always encouraging younger people who are becoming an artist or speaker or whatever and understand. So I wonder if I'm thinking along the same lines.
Yeah.
So let's go back through these, just kind of go a little bit deeper into these.
Sounds good.
Okay. The first one was know thyself.
Yes.
Talk to me about knowing yourself. What does that mean?
So to me, that is going back to your deepest knowing of who you are, not to be too out there. Which I will. Let me preface with saying this: I don't know everything, and I don't pretend to be an expert, but I do. I am very confident in what I do.
Yeah.
And I do feel a sense of purpose and this is what I'm supposed to do. And I don't think that's an accident, but I'm also very intentional about making sure I hold to these things. So knowing thyself, I think has to do with even just that. This is who I am. This is part of who I am. And why I do what I do. It's your why. Why am I doing this? What are my values? So for me, if somebody's listening out there and they're like, know thyself, what does that even mean? I know who I am. Okay, but do you know your values? What are your top 3 values in life? If someone were to go, hey, this is what this person values most. It's family, it's truth, it's whatever. For me, I know my core values. I know my core values are truth, they are love, they are wonder, they are courage. 3 of those come very naturally to me: wonder and love and truth. I am very tied, have very deep roots with those values. But courage is a choice for me. I'm not this naturally courageous person. And so I have to view courage as this is inherent. And I need courage to love well. I need courage to have a wonder about life. I need courage to be truthful when it's hard. And I think, so those are my values. So me knowing my values gives me purpose in everything else I do. And it gives me a passion. It gives me a zeal. I'm motivated when I wake up in the morning because I know I'm going to live my values today. Not because I want to check off everything on the checklist, even though, don't get me wrong, I am one of those people who love doing that. But but I think most of all, it's being able to say I'm living my values that gives me fulfillment. Because when I live that way, even the small things make a really big difference and have value. So knowing yourself, I think, starts with knowing your values.
That's good. That's good. So when you say wonder, talk to me. Yeah, talk to me about that.
So that's one of my values personally. I think it comes from my mother, to be honest. My mom has like a childlike heart, always ready to play and be silly, dance around. She was always like that when I was growing up. And I really was annoyed by it at times, but I think the older I got, the more I appreciated how she saw the world.
Yeah.
And I didn't make the connection that I was so much like her until like later in life when, as my kids get older and I'm like, I really want them to see this in me. I'm like, I really want them to see what I saw in my mother. And so it's just having kind of a childlike wonder. It's honestly, I think it takes courage to have a sense of wonder because you have to cut out some of the things that you just on your to-do list, or I got to do this, I got to do this. No, we're going to pause and watch the sunset right now. We're going to just like take it in with some wonder, or like, hey, we're going to enjoy this moment. Just take it in with some wonder. We're just going to dance right now because we need to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think having that sense is kind of where that lands for me.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And I'm thinking about you talking about knowing thyself, like that's one of the right things definitely to consider as a speaker. Because you've been around other speakers, and
yes,
when you're around these people, I have learned that it's super important to know yourself, because when you go out and position yourself to be in front of people, it's a whole different ball game when you're confident in knowing who you are, bringing your values, and oftentimes lining your values up with the organization or whoever you're going to work with.
Yep.
It's just a game changer.
It
right?
is.
And one of the things, kind of just going back to Hawk Agency and one of y'all's primary, I don't know if you say primary talks, but the ownership talk, like when you can line up with other people who value that and you bring in a talk that resonates with whoever that key person is, it's a game changer, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday I did a talk. No, what's today? Wednesday?
Today's Wednesday.
A couple of days ago I did a talk for Oklahoma Hotel and Lodging Association, right? And so when I started talking, the crazy thing is, I use Tome, Tome, for my slides, so I couldn't use my laptop because they didn't want to disconnect from their laptop and plug into mine. In Tome, you can't download your slides. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. So I had this talk ready, right?
Yeah.
I done drove 2 hours. Essentially, I'm getting my talk ready as I'm driving in my head, but I had the slides and all this stuff. So I had to do a completely different talk. And
my.
But here's the cool thing, right? I think reasons that they asked me is because they see me on social media greeting. And when I go to do this talk, I switch it to this engaged talk. I was going to do this talk I titled Hello. And so I do this engaged talk. But, oh, my goodness, when those people heard the things that I value around greeting, I've gotten 5 – I've never had this happen to me after a speaking engagement. I've gotten 5 opportunities.
What?
5 because of my values around greeting.
Yes.
They were like,
is that what you shared?
Yes. Yes. So engaged is my,
yeah.
That's like these are my 7 right things around the way that I approach life.
Yeah.
And my goodness, it just resonated with them. So I just came and shared my values around this whole idea of greeting, and they saw me. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. Like God set that up, right? I don't know if you believe who's ever listening, but I'm like, God set that up. Even though I'm booked out for the year, but I can't. But I'm like, okay, what does it look like for 2024 or whatever the case may look like? But yeah, like coming in, and it's cool how you resonate with people when you start talking about your values and all that good stuff. So,
because even if they aren't the same, they're like, that's kind of like mine.
Yeah,
that's this.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And sometimes I think you help broaden people's, extend their value. Like, oh, I never thought about it in this way, right?
Yeah.
And so just really cool. So know thyself. I love it. Write Number 2, write, rinse, and repeat.
Yes.
What is that a song?
No.
Oh, what is that?
Okay. Write, like WRITE.
Yes.
So write, rinse, and repeat. So for me, when I am coming up with a thought, an idea, a metaphor, whatever it is that I'm wanting to share, I always will write it down. And even if it kind of comes up randomly in a conversation where I'm like, oh, I just said that. And you know what? I really like that. I want to write that down later. And so I'll write it down, but most of the time it just kind of is a thought I roll around for a while until I'm ready to write it down. And then once I write it down, I share it with somebody else and let them react naturally to the idea or to the story or to the whatever the thought is. And then inevitably, every single time, it changes. And so to me, that's like rinsing it. You're going, let me flesh this thing out. And so you write it, you rinse it, you come back to the drawing board, you repeat it.
Yeah.
Write it, rinse it, repeat. And I think every time I speak, even if it's the same message, I do the same thing. So I write it, I speak it, I run it through, I flesh it out, and like every time I'm like,
You get all the suds off of it.
I
Get
saw
it.
something different,
Yeah.
or I heard something different, or somebody else came up to me and told me that something else stood out to them, and I thought it was just like a nothing kind of comment, but it's something that stood out. And lo and behold, it might stand out to everybody else too, and I might not have known it. And so it's rinsing it out, and then you kind of have to, let's say you want to spend more time on that, then you have to go, okay, well, what's somewhere else that I can, kind of scrape some of the fluff away.
Yeah.
And so I can fit more of that in there. So you're rinsing it, and then you're writing it, you're repeating, that kind of thing.
Like, so I know that I asked, I don't know if these are things, I intentionally said, hey, what are these 5 right things to consider or be consistent in around speaking? The whole write, rinse, repeat, was that something like just because you taking this moment like, let me reflect on what this looks like? Or was that, how did that come about that you started practicing this write, rinse, and repeat?
Well, years ago, I've spoken a lot publicly and in front of groups of people throughout my adult life, and I did not have the luxury of speaking the same message more than once for a long time, and so that was challenging, and that obviously teaches you a lot because you can't repeat things. You're like, new material. But I think now really it is a luxury being able to go, I want to have this talk and I get to refine it. And so that's not to say it's anything less, the next time I do it than the time I did it before. I don't believe that. But I do believe that there is something really, I think, fulfilling for me as a writer and a creator of it, that it's like it keeps it exciting. It's like this is still fresh and exciting here. It still has new life. And then the other part of it is that I do believe in some sense of divinity, and when certain things are said at certain times and seasons, maybe in the world, maybe in a business, maybe in our own lives. And so I want to it's great. It's not that I just want to. I think it's a blessing and a luxury that I get to leave room for that.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's really good. I like that. Number 3. Choose
your lane.
Your lane.
All right. Choose your lane. That's the step that should come before stay in your lane, because we all have heard that before. Sometimes it can be me like, stay in your lane. But when somebody steps out of their lane.
So does that mean stay in your lane regarding as a speaker or somebody, right? Somebody's listening to this.
I think in life, I've heard that just throughout my life.
Yes.
Just like they need to stay in their lane.
You coming over here trying to get in my marriage or whatever.
Right.
Stay in your lane, please. Right. Don't be trying to. Yes, gotcha. So
it can be the same way in the speaking, I think, business and the speaking world. Like if you have a topic on something, but somebody else talks on something similar, you're like, oh, I don't want to get in their lane. So I think that could it could play into that as well. However, However, what I was referring to this is choosing your lane and choosing your audience. I mean,
Gotcha.
the world is a big old place. Like it's a small world, but it's a big world.
Yep.
And I think starting out for me, one of the things that Greg has helped me do, and then a coach that has worked with him and our team, is to really decide, okay, these are the sectors of business where we believe that we will not only do well, like our message will resonate with them and who we are will resonate with them, but also that there is room in this space, in this sector of work and business and life for us to make connections and relationships and have them grow. And so there really is such a benefit to not being all over the place, right? And I think that goes for business as well, and for any business for that matter, but for the speaking business. So for me, like right now, my lanes are education, they're realtors, they're the HR, and I'm just kind of say, okay, these are my lanes, and I want to do the best I can in these lanes for as long as I can.
Yeah, that's good. The hard part for people like me, my personality is like, nobody wants to just choose.
I know.
I want to be in all lanes. I want to be like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know somebody else like that too.
But I am so like, my poor wife, she's like, can you just please choose something?
Right.
And I'm like, but Go Win can fit everywhere.
Yes.
Like everybody needs
me,
to
I'm like
go
encouraging, yes.
win.
I'll be a hype
Yes.
person.
Yes. Like who doesn't need to win? It doesn't matter. Their marriage, leadership, corporate settings, everybody needs to go win.
Mm-hmm.
But I would agree with you though. Like once you can kind of narrow down and start focusing in on something.
Yeah.
But if somebody from the outside sees you, they're like, hey, can you come and talk about whatever in this particular space? Like,
that's
then
great,
but at least you know how to work and who to call when you're trying to get your three. What is it? Receipt. What is it? 3 calls that you got to do a day?
3 seeds.
3 C's.
Yeah, have a conversation, little how you doing?
Yeah. So now you know. All right, my 3 C's. Like when I'm doing this, I know exactly who to call.
Yeah.
And once you grow in that, then people see you.
Yes.
You know.
And the benefit of it too is you really do get to know not just individuals, but you're like, okay, I understand how people in this industry think. And
so now you get the language.
Yeah, and you understand the language. And also you're like, I know what I bring can help people. I'm kind of like, you're like, I feel like my message can translate into any audience. Like I'm like, this is who I am, and this is what I want to bring. And I think everyone would benefit to some degree. But I hear you, and I agree with that, and I see that for myself as well. But I have found really a lot of joy and more than I thought I would.
Choosing your lane.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think there's something great about choosing your lane. And my goodness, like you said, learning people's languages, learning an industry. Because then you almost become like, I could work in this industry because you learn it so well.
Yes.
And then I think just out of that, if you do great at that, you'll get opportunities to go into other spaces. But I think for somebody who's just starting out, trying to develop their speaking, you know, I think, choose your lane. Go all in. I think you'll benefit greatly from that. Number 4, sit down and be humble.
So remember how at the beginning we talked about how I connect with songs, with phrases?
You got a song for this?
This one is a song.
It's a real song?
It is a real one.
By who?
Oh, somebody's going to get mad at me because I'm not remembering. Crap.
Who's going
Sit down, be humble.
Eat your
Kendrick
pie.
Kendrick Lamar, I believe.
Oh.
I believe so.
Wow, I'm just going to Google that.
Yeah. So number 4, sit down and be humble often. So this really comes back to just giving yourself permission to let your guard down and listen. I think some of the defense mechanisms that we have as humans, and especially as leaders, is we just want to talk a lot, and we want to know it all. Like I want to, but I don't. I have the will and the desire to understand everything, but I really don't. And I think there is such a great benefit that I've received from, and I don't always get it right. Let me just preface with that. Like sometimes I'm like, shut up, Monica, you're talking too much. But to be able to be quiet and to listen to people who are further along than you, or who maybe they're not even in your lane, but they still have wisdom to offer through their life or their experiences. And so being able to receive from anyone, really, if it's a lasting truth, like don't be too big to receive from what you may think are small people.
Yeah.
And so I think that really sit down and be humble is like, we want to go, hustle, do, look like we got it all together. And it's like, just chill for a second, because there's so many times. I mean, honestly, at least once a day, you should be sitting down and being humble, especially if you've got a significant other in your life. Like, you need to be like sitting down and being humble and be like, what's on your mind? So in life and work, I do think that's been super beneficial for me, not just being with the Hawks agency team and with Greg and Sarah, who does our business, and John, but meeting other people in the industry and in other industries who have done this like you. I can learn so much.
Yeah, that's good. So sit down, be humble. I just want to go ahead and say this on the record. If you go and look for that song, I had nothing to do with this. It's all her. Those lyrics, those lyrics are a little wild.
Are they?
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my goodness, Monica.
so sorry.
Lord help.
Okay.
Is this what you're listening to?
All I know is the chorus. Don't ask me verses to no songs, okay? I will not know.
No, it is Kendrick Lamar though.
Oh, jeez.
It's the name of the song is Humble.
Eddie, I'm sorry.
No, you're so funny. No, so yeah, but let's get back to the sit down, be humble, ladies and gentlemen, because I really like this.
Okay.
Because I think it's so true.
Okay.
And one of the things, like from my kids,
Yeah.
right? From my kids who definitely don't work in all these different things. Like I have way more life experience than them. But oftentimes I like to sit down with my 17-year-old son, who I think is a very intelligent young kid and all this stuff, and just sit down and be humble with him and let him speak into it, because he often comes with me to listen to me speak or whatever the case may be. And I've over the years, gotten some of the best advice from him, just from him listening in on my talks and just learning from him. And I will go make some tweaks.
I love that.
I'll get ready to go somewhere and he'll say, who you talking to? And I'll say, I'm got to go to high school today. And he'll be like, all right, I think these stories would be best. Which talk are you doing? Right? And this guy, he ain't even, who is he? But I've learned to sit down, or my wife, who's definitely not in the industry or anything like that. But man, we just sitting down and being humble and listen to her. And then in my work for the church, one of the things is whenever somebody does a message, we do it during the week and sit down, and then people pick all kinds of holes.
Yeah.
And you be like, I'm not even worth anything after listening to that. Right? It's like, first of all, I spent 40 hours on this talk. You did not. But you think you're going to tell me? But it makes us better.
Yes,
right?
it
It's
does.
this whole idea, sit down, be humble.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have to take it, right? Sometimes it's like, but thank you.
Yeah, it's a grain of salt sometimes in the sea. You're
Yeah.
like, thank you for that. I appreciate your feedback.
But again, I think what you're sharing with this as well is some of the others, somebody who's just starting out, like as a speaker, and please sit down and be humble.
Yeah.
Sit down and be humble, because you can learn a ton. Learn a ton. So these first four are just you're just knocking it out the park, Monica. I'm glad our first round, I don't know if it was this good.
I don't know either, honestly.
Actually, the first round is always better, probably. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But no, this is really good. I really appreciate this. Now, number 5, boldly take every opportunity you can. Talk to me.
Yeah. So when I wrote that down, I put boldly in parentheses, and I'm doing my finger quotes right now. Because I think we have to be bold, especially if you're new to the game, any game. It takes a lot of boldness.
Like normal boldness or Greg Hogg boldness?
Depends what kind of personality you got. For me,
Tabletop boldness, Greg Hogg?
yeah. Some people, it comes so naturally. They're like, I ain't nervous. I'm like, don't lie to me, okay? Number 1, don't lie. Number 2, don't make it sound easier than it is, because then I'm not going to want to try.
Yeah. What, somebody said they're not nervous before they speak?
Yeah.
Maybe. Oh.
This is what he gets.
We just got a lot of neck stuff going on right now.
Goodness.
They don't get nervous before they speak. Okay. Maybe.
No, but I've just known a lot of people like that as well who are just like, no, I don't get nervous. And I'm like, all right. And at first, I think when I was first, speaking and not in this way I am now, but when I would first speak, I'd be like, maybe I don't need to do this. Maybe I'm not meant to do this. Maybe I shouldn't do it. But it really, I had to ask myself those questions. I think those were important for me to ask. And I mean, it could be that some people's answer to that question when they ask it is, no, I shouldn't. I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
But for me, the answer was, no, I should be doing this. I might not have like a typical type A, super bold personality. Like I want everyone to be happy, but I have very strong values, very strong convictions, and I have a lot to say if someone will give me a minute. And so I find that for me, speaking is so fulfilling, not only because like I get to share what I believe are truths that can truly, truly help people. But I love seeing, like I said at the beginning, people light up when they go, I get it, or I see it in a different way now. So anyway, back to boldly. It does take boldness on my part, and I think on most people's parts, especially if you're new to the game. Even if you're really good at something and you then begin in the industry like I have. So I felt like I was a pretty good communicator, but I'm still new in this sector. So for me, every time I go into a new sector, like once I've like spoken HR, spoken at government, spoken at a school, once I do that I honestly, it comes down like 70%. The nerves and like my need to just buckle down and be bold. But when I'm first in there, man, it really does take a lot of boldness because there's so many unknowns.
Yeah.
Like, is this balloon going to float or flop? I do not know. So yes, boldly take every opportunity that you can. So we talked about having our lanes and choosing our lanes, but like you mentioned, but if an opportunity comes up, then yes, take that opportunity. You may find a lane that you didn't even know you belonged in.
Yeah.
And you might soar the highest in that lane. So take the opportunity. And it might not always be like a golden opportunity or glamorous or whatever. It may be something that's small, but if you can, you should.
Yeah.
I heard a friend say that today to me at the gym. He said, I just have this mentality that if I can, I will. If somebody asks for help, I don't say no. If I can help, I will. If they ask me to do this job and take on this project, if I can, I will.
Yeah.
And you don't know what can come from those things.
For sure.
So it's boldly sometimes taking those opportunities, and sometimes it's just saying yes because you can.
Yeah. No, so good. I really like that. So whenever I originally saw this, boldly take every opportunity you can, you kind of went back to that. But one of the things that I always tell people at the beginning is like, if it's free, take it, right? Because you're trying to get your reps, and you never know who's going to be in that room whenever you go and take that. So for the opportunity, like I went and did this thing for the Hotel and Lodge Association based on a friend who told a friend to reach out to me.
Yeah.
And like, it was peanuts. Like Greg Hawkes would have been like, no. It was, I mean, it was $5 million. Greg would have been like, no. but no, it was money,
Yes,
right? And for
right.
a 10-minute, 20-minute talk, like,
Yes.
thank God for like, it was really great. But it wasn't as much as like I probably would take. But now look, I've had 5 people jump on my website and request me to come and speak again.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even looked at like what those things are as far as what they want to pay me or whatever the case may be. But because I said yes to that, now you got so many opportunities. And when you're first starting out, jump in there. You just never know. And if you do a great job and it resonates with people, you get many more. So, and just be bold.
Yes.
Be confident.
Absolutely.
When you go up there. So,
Yep.
So great job here. Mike, how can people find you?
So I'm on pretty much everything, even though I'm not super active. I am on there, and but so I would love a connection, and we'll message back. I'm on LinkedIn, Monica Sheree Scott, Instagram, even got a TikTok now.
What?
Having a
You're
little-
on TikTok?
I'm on TikTok.
What in the world? Are you
know.
creating TikToks or?
I've done a few. There's some like meaningful ones that are like work related. I always try to have like a bit of encouragement in there, but sometimes it's just me goofing around with my kids and
Gotcha.
doing something adventurous or fun.
Is LinkedIn your jam? Like, which one's your favorite?
Yeah, no, LinkedIn. Yeah.
LinkedIn. Is there one that you're like, hey, as a speaker, this is the one you definitely should be on? And do you
Yeah.
have any tips around that?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn.
Okay.
I mean, it's business to business. And like I'll post on there and I don't get very many views or likes. I mean, it is a strange place on LinkedIn. It ain't the same as these other ones. But it is, but here's the deal. I know that if I have a potential client in business, that they're going to be on there. And they're going to look me up more than likely,
Yep.
even if it's just to view my page. And so I want to have things there that really portray who I want to be, who I am, and what I do. And so if nothing else, it is for that.
Yeah.
Like I might not get a ton of views or a bunch of likes, but I know that they can find me.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's good. You know, and one of the things I think about social media for those who are listening and they saying, hey, this is a new place for them is like, they're just starting out speaker. I'm like, I don't have a big, they have this sense of like they don't have a big following. I've learned it really not about the following,
No.
right? It's a big following is cool, but really, man, some of the people with the smallest followers are making the most money and getting the most opportunities. And,
Yes.
so it's not always about that, but I definitely think it's important to stay consistent, figure out how to stay on there because you just never know, you know, and when that person's going to come across and billions of people are on social media. So it'd be crazy for you not to try to figure out and find your place on there. And so, Monica, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I really enjoyed this. I'm excited. I can't wait till you come. I need to come hear you speak one day.
All right.
Yeah, next time if you got something local, let me know. I'd love
Okay.
to come hear you and check
Will
you
do.
out and see what you got. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for hitting that
Thank
play
you,
button for
thank you.
another episode of the Hetty Coleman Podcast. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, as always, go win.